And welcome everybody to another episode of Pulse of Fins Nation. I am your host, Louis Sung. I am joined by Eric Wiedeke. I am joined by Chad Ronenbaum. No Ron Caniff again this week. He is busy, I am told. So he is probably going to be watching from the sidelines, I'm sure. And he may chime in with a comment or two. That's my prediction anyway. Or who knows, he'll pop in halfway and he'll decide he wants to tell us how wrong we are about everything we're saying. But all of those are possibilities. Nevertheless, here we are talking about the Miami Dolphins. We are now 2 wins in a row. We are so back. We are so back, as the kids say. And so we are going to be talking about this is the comment. Is this the next evolution of the Miami Dolphins? Are we watching in real time the adaptation, the evolution of what this team could do to try to win on a more regular basis? Is it more sustainable than what we've seen over the past 2 weeks? I'm going to ask Eric about that. I'm going to ask Chad about that. But as always, we have to mention that this show is brought to you by some good friends over there at Thompson Cigar. I'm pulling up the graphic right now, if I can just find it in this list of stuff. Here we go. ThompsonCigar.com. I think it's cigars.com, actually. Yes, it is. Here we go. ThompsonCigar.com. Use the promo code 3yards and you can get 20% off your entire order over $75. So if you are somebody who enjoys a good cigar or possibly the best cigar that you can find, you can go to ThompsonCigar.com and again, use the promo code 3yards. That's 3YARDS and get 20% off your entire order over $75. All right. So once again, we talked about this during the post-game show, you and me, Eric, a lot about is this the next evolution really of the Miami Dolphins offense? Because what we're seeing right now is we are seeing that they are no longer nearly as explosive as they used to be, and they are trading that explosiveness for efficiency, taking whatever the defense gives them, whatever that looks like, and just turning it on its head so that the defense, they either have to be willing to give up the big play, which Tua and Tyreek and Jalen Waddle are so adept at doing, or they are going to have to take the death by 1,000 paper cuts and allow the likes of Jonnu Smith and Odell Beckham Jr. and Devon Achane and all those guys to be able to burn them on the short routes and the underneath routes coming out of the backfield, whatever you may have you. So you have all these different options. And now Tua is not looking for only one option. Tua is finding all sorts of things that he can do. Tua is dodging and evading pressure. Tua is finding guys wide open in the middle of the field. Tua is finding it in the occasion that there is a deep shot, he will take it. But that's coming very rare now because of the 2 deep safeties, and they're trying to make sure that they don't get burned. These defenses are. So the fact that last couple of years, if the defenses ended up doing that, they basically shut down the whole offense. We couldn't move. We were paralyzed because we couldn't go deep over the middle of the field or deep down the sideline to the likes of Tyreek and Waddle. There was just nothing there. Now, however, things have changed. Miami has learned how to run the football a little more efficiently. I say a little more because it seems that without Alec Ingold, the running game doesn't seem to do very well. Hopefully he'll be back against the New England Patriots. But not only do they have the running game, they have the short passing game going. So they're finding the short passes in the flat to Jonnu Smith. They're finding Odell Beckham Jr. on those short slants. They're finding Devon Achane running in the slot or coming out of the backfield. Raheem Mostert is even getting in on this, and the likes of Jalen Wright may be next to follow. So I'm going to go ahead and ask you first, Chad. Are we witnessing what is an evolution of the Miami Dolphins happening in real time, or is this more of just flukiness and we're expecting to fall back again, in your opinion?
For my opinion, it depends on what unit you're talking about. Offensively, they've been playing pretty well. I think the Dolphins are seeing a lot of too high safeties. I think the Rams did it the majority of the game, but I think that's happening more commonly in the NFL as well. To me, it's almost like fashion where things come in and out. And this is a lot of the old bend but don't break defense mentality where you're going to let teams get those underneath passes that are 3-4 yards and hope your guys can come up and tackle. And so it requires some patience offensively and from the quarterback and from your offensive coordinator. But I think McDaniel's adjusted to it. It's that style of defense we see a lot of where the safeties are too deep and the linebackers are 5 to 7 yards backed up. You got to run right at that. I mean, you have the ability to get 2-3 yards down the field before contact, and we have the personnel to succeed with it because we have 3 good backs, and we would, especially when Ingold's healthy, you can run a lot of lead fullback right at that. And from my experience, it's hard to stop people that are running power football lead fullback if you have two deep safeties and your linebackers are backed up. You got to start tightening down on it, and that's where we get some of our routes to open up. So I think you're going to continue to see good offensive football. Tua, I mean, he's looking good from an efficiency standpoint, but he's playing really well, in my opinion. I mean, I know you're still having to deal with the good and the bad with Tua. He does not like to throw the ball away. That's been true of him his whole career. He'll take a sack or two where he should throw it away, especially situationally. But both games, Tua's made big plays where he's went through 2-3 progression reads and they weren't there, and he's had to move out of the pocket and buy time. There was in that Rams game, there was a key conversion that when he threw to Odell Beckham, that was just an off script play where he had to roll out of the pocket. And this play, the Janu Smith touchdown, was another one where he had to roll out of the pocket and find somebody. And I think he had one to Waddle in that game. So the offense is going to get better. The defense is up and down to me. I'd like to see them adjusting a little bit quicker, but a lot of our defensive struggles is tackling. We're missing a lot of tackles right now, and if you're going to sit back and try to come up and tackle and let guys catch underneath, you need to stop those tight ends. If people are going to throw the tight end for 3-4 yards, but you got to tackle him. You can't let him run for another 3 or 4 yards. And that I think that has a lot to do right now with the Jordan Poyer and a few other players being a little bit slow and some undisciplined tackles, and that's why David Long's no longer on this team. Is we weren't getting the job done. I know I've already talked a little bit. This is going to be a little bit of a rant, and I hate to be this guy when we've had a couple wins. This is the worst special teams period I've ever seen. It's an absolute joke, and it's on us. I have never seen a worse special teams coached in my life watching football 40 years. To put this in perspective, in this football game, we come out and we controlled the football 8 minutes and scored a touchdown. And our defense came out and put a 3-and-out on. Under no circumstance would you try to block that punt. It's foolish. You want to return that punt safely, get that defense back on the field with our offense that's cooking. What do? We go after the punt, we run into the kicker. What is the outcome? They get a first down, they control the ball 6 minutes. In the end of the first quarter, it's 7-3 with close to the same time of possession. That's an enormous negative impact to the football team they have to overcome. Later in this game, we have a punt returner who I don't think's been coached at all. He doesn't even understand the concept of when to fair catch a football. I like Malik Washington. We're up 5 points and you're standing on your 10-yard line. You don't field that ball unless there's somebody not even within 10 yards of you. He makes a dangerous return. Of course, Danny Crossman, special teams, gets a holding penalty. We start on the 3-yard line instead of the 10-yard line. Is that not noticed? No, because we went 97 yards and our offense overcame it. But every single game, we are overcoming mistakes off our special teams. And the punt team's the worst I've ever seen. It's horrible. You go to the Rams game, nobody pays attention because it didn't impact the game. Suri Neal doesn't bother to run back and bounce. We get a 15-yard penalty. The Rams get the ball at the 50 instead of the 35. That's a big difference in that possession for the Rams. It makes it much more likely statistically they're going to score 3 points. I've watched Duke Riley inexplicably run down the field, ignore the punter, waving everybody away, and dive into 5 opposing players to try to touch a football. I've watched our punt team get 2 penalties in the same game because they didn't even know how to line up legally. And it's ridiculous. I don't understand how the guy has a job. This is not rocket science. On that play, you want me to do it for you? Sure. You stand on the 5-yard line, Malik Washington. If you have to come forward to catch it, you fair catch it almost every time. If you have to drift back, you run forward and let it go. That's what he's told going in there. I don't think he's been told any of that. It's that he fumbles that ball in that game against the Raiders and we're up 5. If he muffs that and they get that ball on our goal line, that can lose the football game right there. And so I'm watching our offense improve. I'm watching our defense make some key stops. And every single game, we're overcoming this stuff. And even the stuff that people don't notice we succeed on, you can't tell me on an obvious onside kick coming that Duke Riley is one of the top 11 players on this team with hands. He can't be. There's no way. And if you watch that game where the Rams onside it, he came very close to muffing that. It almost squirted out on him. And I'm looking at like, we've got all these guys, Jalen Ramsey, Waddle, Hill. Like, you can't tell me between our backs, receivers, corners, safeties, and receivers that there's not guys with better hands than Duke. What is he doing on the field? That's, again, Danny Crossman almost blows the game there for us. And we are not going to make the playoffs with a special teams that's going to contribute 2 to 3 major negative plays a game. I mean, that's just real. It's that bad right now. And I don't want to let that get overshadowed because our offense is improving and our defense is improving and we got a couple wins. You can't beat Pittsburgh. You can't beat Buffalo. You can't beat Baltimore. You can't beat Kansas City when you do that stupid stuff on special teams. You've got to go in. You've got to protect the football and be aware situationally when to try to return a punt, when to try to block a punt, and when it's not worth the risk to do it. So sorry for the rant. I was over it. I know Calais Campbell almost blocked that punt, but it made zero sense to even be trying to block it. You should have been making sure it wasn't a fake and then doing everything you could do to help protect your rookie punt returner to not make a mistake to get that defense right back on the field. And they screwed it up. And so if it had been an isolated incident, that's fine. But I just was rambling like off the top of my head all the mistakes I've watched this year from the special teams, and it's a direct reflection of them being poorly coached, 100%. Anyway, that's all.
Whew. Eric, do you want to try and follow that?
I don't even know where to start. Following that, we're talking about just in general. I think a lot of what we saw in the Raiders game, defensively at least, was by design. You were playing Gardner Minshew. I think the idea was you're going to sit back and you're going to let Gardner Minshew make Gardner Minshew mistakes. Didn't happen as consistently as you would have liked to have seen, but you did see it towards the end of the game. I think they're going to do I think they're going to have a very similar game plan against Drake May and the Patriots. Drake May, better quarterback than Gardner Minshew, without a doubt. But the Patriots' offensive line is awful. The Dolphins are going to do what they can to get home rushing 4. And I think the defensive line is improving. You've got 7 sacks in the last 2 games compared to 10 sacks through literally the first 9 games of the season, or through the first 8 games of the season, rather. So I think you're starting to see some gelling there on the defensive side of the ball. Offensively, you are seeing a little bit more balance. Eventually, teams are going to treat Jonnu Smith like a legitimate threat. Not that they're not doing it already, but I think the idea is that you're just so terrified of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and Devon Achane that he's kind of an afterthought in this offense. I think if he continues to have games like he had this past Sunday and even a few weeks ago when he had 96 yards and a score, teams are going to start rethinking that a little bit, and that's going to open up some of those bigger plays for the Dolphins offense. Right now, I think that they've just got a bevy of options, and they're willing to use all of them, which is something that it feels like the offense hasn't necessarily had in recent years. Tua is a lot more disciplined with the way in which he's kind of distributing the football. I mentioned on post game that, it used to be that you would have that one boneheaded throw a game from Tua that you can almost kind of count on like clockwork. You just knew the interception was coming. You'd rather he just get it over with early in the game. That way he can go on to be fantastic the rest of the game. That's not happening right now. He's playing a really grown up brand of football, playing within himself. And some of the creation that's going on right now, extending plays, is probably some of the best stuff that he's done in his career as far as that's gone. So I don't think it was ever that he was immobile. I think he's always been able to move very well in the pocket. But when you're 2-6, 3-6, 4-6, you don't have as much to lose, and so you tend to play a lot more free. And I think maybe that's part of what's going on right there as far as, some of his improved creation ability is going, along with the confidence that he's clearly feeling. As far as special teams goes, it's been what it's been all season long. Unfortunately, I don't think that there's any way that they can really remedy it in season. I mean, you can fire Danny Crossman, and I think that would probably improve the unit immediately. But from a personnel standpoint, I don't see a reason for Duke Riley to be on the team, period, at this point, if I'm being honest, especially now that you've added Tyrell Dodson. I don't know what Channing Tindall does on this roster if he's not capable of playing on special teams. The one thing that I will say for the special teams is in recent weeks, Jason Sanders has been a lot better, thankfully, than he was at the beginning of the season. But,
still too many doinks for my taste.
Well, listen, he's 9 for 9 in his last 4 games. So, and 3 of those are over 50. So, you take the good with the bad with Sanders. As long as he's making the kicks, I don't really care how they look. But I think that there is something to be said about a little bit of a shift offensively and even defensively with the team. Hopefully as you get Kendall Fuller back and you get Bradley Chubb back eventually, I firmly believe he'll be back for Thanksgiving. I think that's kind of when he's going to make his debut. Isaiah Wynn coming back on the offensive side of the ball. There's talent that's you're getting an influx of. It's just the question is, 4 and 6, where you're looking at a wild card that maybe looks a little bit stronger than we thought a few weeks ago, because I think everybody was kind of looking at Denver and going, oh, we can chase them down. I'm not so certain anymore. Denver's looking like a really legitimate team. But immaterial of all that, I'm pleased with the direction of the Dolphins overall, offensively and defensively. The special teams, they're going to be what they're going to be for this season.
Well, what I wanted to bring up is that I get where Chad is coming from with the frustration of the special teams unit, because it's not just been this season. Obviously, Danny Crossman has been around for the past couple of years as well, and we've been just as frustrated, and we figured that this was the year where Danny Crossman would finally be handed his walking papers, and obviously that did not happen. I mean, the real frustration, I guess, is that in a way, this is kind of like a Dolphins fans thing in general. Once Dolphins fans get a taste of something that they know for a fact and is inarguably good, they don't want to get rid of it and they don't want to stop eating it. So Danny Crossman comes right after the legendary, I guess you could say at this point, Darren Rizzi, who, by the way, is somehow managing to lead the New Orleans Saints back to relevancy as the interim head coach. So Darren Rizzi, as we all know, was probably one of the best special teams coordinators we've had in recent memory. And since Eric wants to go ahead and promote him, Jason Sanders was delivered right to us on a silver platter, courtesy of Darren Rizzi. So we can thank him for that as well. So that was one of the only things that we were confident in as Dolphins fans, is like, well, at least our special teams is going to be top of the line because Darren Rizzi's still the coordinator. He'll find a way to make it work. Enter Danny Crossman, who has the biggest shoes to fill you could possibly ask for any special teams coordinator. And not only is it not decent, it's bad. It's very bad. It's frustratingly bad, as Chad made it a point to point out. So now we have a situation where, well, where do you go from here? You're not getting Darren Rizzi back. Unless I guess technically he could become a free agent again if the Saints decide not to promote him to head coach. Because I think that was what ultimately caused him to leave to go to New Orleans in the first place, if I'm not mistaken. It was that he interviewed for the head coaching position, and then he was passed over for somebody else. So that ultimately is what led to Rizzi going to New Orleans in the first place. So, I mean, I guess it just depends. Does Rizzi want to stay in New Orleans? Would he mind coming back to Miami if he's passed over? I certainly wouldn't mind if he came back to Miami. Darren Rizzi being the special teams coordinator again would be phenomenal. But I think in reality, Rizzi still has ambitions of becoming a head coach somewhere. So he would probably, I honestly think that he would go somewhere if he doesn't end up interviewing for other jobs, which he absolutely should, because if he manages to turn the Saints around, he deserves to at least, if not be given the Saints job outright, he deserves at least multiple head coaching interviews. But if he somehow manages not to get one, I would think that Rizzi would want to go to a team where the head coaching spot looks a little suspect, so that when it comes back around, he's given the opportunity to try and prove himself again.
Jets. Yeah, I think he's
that might actually be the problem. Listen, Chad, if he ends up going to the Jets, we might actually be in trouble.
So. I think Rizzi has a legitimate shot at getting that Saints job right now. I mean, he's 2-0, right? I mean, he keeps winning. How did he get rid of that guy? I don't know. We'll see. But I mean, I obviously missed the Rizzi days. I've given up this season on the special teams helping us win games. I don't expect to get a kick return for a touchdown or a big block or something like that. But I just don't. I'm
real quick. That's not really happening anywhere right now. Like I think I can count one kick return touchdown that's happened.
Yeah, with the new rules change, it's harder. Our teams haven't figured out how to use it. But either way, I just want them to stop hurting our team. I'm at the point now where Mike McDaniel just say, no, we're not even going to put a punt returner. As soon as the ball is punted, everybody just turn and walk off the field, because we have a better chance getting field position than letting this circus stay out there and get penalties for us, because we don't want to give another team a first down, and we love doing that. And so it's so bad. It's, again, like, I don't expect our special teams to be a good unit and win games. I just want them to not hurt our team anymore.
Eric, you were going to mention?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not. So I guess what Chad is getting at, it doesn't have to be like a kick return for a touchdown, but we all saw what happened 2 weeks ago. Denver and Kansas City are playing. Denver drives right down the field, and they line up for a game-winning field goal. Kansas City comes up with the blocked kick. And that's just, unfortunately, something that you're just not going to get that with the Dolphins, I think is what he's getting at. You know, you're not going to get that one play that kind of turns the tide of the game, whether it's a blocked punt, a blocked kick, anything really positive in the special teams game. As a matter of fact, you're more likely to see it kind of go the other way, unfortunately. But that's just, it is what it is right now. You're kind of, you just have to do damage control with the special teams at this point.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't have any problem trying to block a field goal, trying to block kick, trying to return. It's situationally when it makes sense. Like I said, to start that Raiders game, it makes no sense to go after that punt when you just 3 and out at them, because the Raiders are in serious trouble. I mean, we just held the ball for 8 minutes, and that defense is tired. It's hot in Miami, and you're going to make them go right back out on the field with the power of our team. We've got to a Waddle, Hill, Achane, all these guys ready to go. Giving our special teams, giving the Raiders another chance, that is just gut wrenching to see that happen. And I understand Calais Campbell almost blocked that punt, but it's the coaching part of it is like, why are you trying? Like, why would you do that? And that's the head scratcher. Just like later in the game, again, I know we overcame it, but why would you try to return a kick when there's people all around you off the 10 when you're winning the game? And we just got to get those guys back on the field, you know. And I don't blame Malik Washington. He's trying to help his team. He's a rookie. That's Danny Crossman. Before he even goes out there, it's to say, hey, look, I really don't want you returning this unless it's like ridiculous, like nobody near you. Just fair catch this ball. And if it's drifting back, just let it go, because you just don't want to have a negative play hurt the team right there. And again, he's a rookie. You got to be worried that Malik Washington, that was a dicey return. We got that penalty on anyway. I think he got to the 15, but there were bodies flying around everywhere. And like I said, that's a whole different game if he fumbles that punt and the Raiders get the ball right there and score and take the lead. And so from a special team standpoint, there's a time you do maybe try, again, if we're playing Buffalo and we're down 8 and our offense is just not doing anything, by all means, try to take it back, Malik. Go for it. But in this game, past the head coach, I think the majority of that organization wanted to lose this game. The Raiders did not want to win this game. They're worried about getting a franchise quarterback. That's what they're worried about. So just don't give teams like that an opportunity to get back in those games. So anyway.
I'm sure that Aaron Rodgers will be available for them to sign next season if he doesn't decide to go back into his deep, dark cave and ponder the universe a second time and be like, you know what? Maybe I made the wrong choice.
Yeah, I did I don't like talking playoffs at 4 and 6, obviously, but I know Eric had mentioned Denver. There's some interesting games coming up because Denver, I took a peek at their schedule. They play the Colts and they also play the Bengals, which those are two of the other teams that are in this race probably for that 7th wildcard seed. So those are going to be interesting games. And then the Broncos also have the Chargers and the Chiefs on that schedule. So it's not going to be easy, a cakewalk for them, but they also they have the Raiders we just played. They have the Browns, I think, who have not looked good. But so
yeah,
go ahead.
Their next 3 being Indy. I think the next 3 is actually Vegas, Indy, and Cleveland. And I'm worried that they might be 9-5 at the end of that stretch.
Then it's Raiders, Browns, and Colts, and the Chargers, Bengals, Chiefs right after that. So the toughest.
I mean, it's definitely a tough finish for sure.
Yeah, again, I think the important in those games could be, do they beat the Colts and do they beat the Bengals? Because we got to get past the Colts, obviously, but if we don't get past the Colts, the tiebreakers could get interesting if we have a tiebreaker somehow over the Bengals or somehow over the Broncos, even though we didn't play them. If we have a tiebreaker somehow over them, get into those 3-way scenarios. But I personally don't think the Colts have a team capable of winning enough games to be a problem. The Bengals probably are the best of those 3, but for whatever reason, they keep losing. But they're playing offensively really good football, but they just keep finding ways to lose. But
might I make a comparison?
Yeah.
Cincinnati kind of looks like Miami. A
kind
team
of
that's way better than their record says they should be.
Yeah, and our division's much easier. Yeah, we have Buffalo, but they've got the Raiders and the Steelers to contend with right now. So,
are we just evaluating the Bengals' offense here?
Yeah, I am.
Because I think we're kind of just like talking about the Bengals like the defense does. No, that's the reason why they're 4-7.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah.
Zach Taylor's got to go. Joe Burrow's having.
I mean, I was never convinced that Zach Taylor was anything special to begin with. I still remember him from Miami.
I know. Ryan Tannehill's. Or no, was he the OC or was he the quarterback's coach?
No, it wasn't. Okay, I'm probably messing this up again. Alf, I'm sure, has corrected me once before, but Zach Taylor was family to somebody in the Dolphins organization when he was here. I can't remember who it was.
No, I don't know.
It wasn't Mike Sherman.
No,
Mike
I think it was
somebody else.
Yeah. It was when they had the whole Bill Lazor, Zach Taylor era going on there. It was a very weird time.
We were all excited about. Do you remember how excited we were about Bill Lazor? It's like all the memes were a fire in our legs.
Yeah, it's been a while. Bill Lazor, yeah.
Didn't Bill Lazor land in Cincy?
Didn't he what?
Didn't he land in Cincinnati too at some point?
Oh, I'm not sure on that one.
I
don't
think
know
so.
where he went after the Dolphins. I remember him.
Bill Lazor went to the Bengals right after the Dolphins as the quarterback coach and offensive coordinator.
But yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, obviously we got to win. We've got to sweep the Jets and meet the Patriots. That's for sure. And then one out of the other 3, it maybe gets us in. We probably have to win 2 out of the 3 against.
It's got to be 10 wins. It's got to be 10.
I think you're probably right too. And so that means we've got to beat 2 of the 3 of Houston. Green Bay
and San Francisco.
I'm going to say this right now. I don't think that's as daunting a task as we would have thought it was right at the beginning of the year. Something is wrong in San Francisco. Something is very wrong with what. Well,
they've had a lot of injuries in San Francisco.
Yeah. But it's not just McCaffrey. McCaffrey's not the only thing.
They lost.
No, but Bosa,
right? I think the tight end was out this week.
And Kittle's
been out. I think Purdy's hurt right now a little bit. So I'm less worried about the 49ers at home than I am going to Green Bay. I'd tell you that. But Houston, I don't know where. I think Nico
Something's
Collins
wrong
is
in
supposed
Houston
to.
too.
Oh, they've had the receiving core got all knocked out. They lost Diggs, they lost Collins, and so you go from about 3 Pro Bowl level receivers to 1. It makes a big difference in your offensive production. But that won't be an easy game to win in Houston. But it's going to be interesting to see how the Jets play out because obviously they're a hot mess, and
The Jets have given
think,
up.
I think
I
they
believe
are.
the report
I think
that
they
they
go
give up.
into full on pack it in mode and just.
well, that
They
means
might
what
end
do
with
you
3
do with
wins.
Rodgers then? Is he just going to fake an injury and be hanging up for the rest of the year? Because that Aaron Rodgers, I can't imagine wants to just lose.
Aaron Rodgers doesn't care, man. He cashed in. He's happy. He's happy.
Yeah. So then your hamstring's done for the year, right? If you're him, why play? I don't know. I mean, like I will say this for the Dolphins because we had the same start that the Jets did, and to credit McDaniel, the organization, and the leaders like Calais Campbell, this team did hold together. I didn't really notice in the media people blaming each other, finger pointing, or a lot of players blowing up in the locker room. Where the Jets, they fired their head coach, they fired their GM today, I think. They
It wasn't that long ago. We were calling for that. Just wanted to say that real quick.
No, for the GM firing. Yeah.
Some were saying McDaniel too. Like he hasn't learned his lesson. He never was
the
going
fan
to,
base.
blah, blah, blah.
The fan base was sure, but the owners and the GMs, everything held together is my point. And the Dolphins are, we still have a big hole, but the team held together. Whereas the Jets just imploded. In my opinion, they just imploded. Like the things the owner has done hasn't been. I mean, when they fired Saleh, it didn't make a lot of sense. They switched to their offensive coordinators. They fired their GM. They traded off Mike Williams and grabbed Devontae. They're just doing all these wild reactionary things right now. And so,
can I tell you why? I think you know the answer. Why?
No, go for it.
Because Aaron Rodgers showed up.
I know. I want you
now
to say
he's in charge. He is the GM. He is the owner. He is the everything. He wanted all his old buddies. Got me Devontae Adams, Mr. Woody Johnson now. And he made it happen. Like there were reports that Joe Douglas during the Devontae Adams trade, Joe Douglas had very little to do with that trade, like very little. So that was all Aaron Rodgers going over Douglas's head and going over the head coach's head, whoever it was. And by the way, Aaron Rodgers was the one who advocated for Jeff Ulbrich too, if I may remind everybody. So let's be real. It's very much a LeBron James situation. When you have LeBron James, let's be real. The head coach does not matter. You are listening to LeBron. LeBron is the GM. LeBron is the owner. LeBron is the coach. He is everything. And the same right now is going for Aaron Rodgers with the New York Jets. He is the owner. He is the head coach. He is the GM. Nobody matters except Aaron Rodgers.
Will Aaron Rodgers, the DM, tell the team the best thing to do now is lose and try to get a franchise quarterback because that's where they're at.
He is the franchise. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I don't know.
The difference being LeBron is still good. I mean, that's kind of the difference.
There were some little flashes here and there of vintage Aaron Rodgers in the past.
Yeah, it's like those old Christmas lights. You plug them in and they flash a few times. Eventually, you have to pull the plug. They're gone.
Hey, Tyson threw a few good punches in that match, but that's all he did. But the match as a whole didn't look very good.
You couldn't watch it. What are you talking about? You couldn't even watch it.
I got to watch like after round 1 or something like that. But
look,
I'm comparing Mike Tyson and Aaron Rodgers.
Right? I can make my conspiracy theories that I think that match was rigged from top to bottom. So quite frankly, I think it was bogus. Mike Tyson,
maybe.
Like one of my coworkers at work, Diego, said this. He basically said that, listen, Mike Tyson is about to make more money than he has in his entire boxing career. So
he made a lot of money, but I just was saying like Mike Tyson was moving very slow. That's all I'm gonna say. And
Jake Paul's a YouTuber. He hasn't spent his whole life doing this.
He's 60. He's 60, Lewis. And he was in the hospital.
And he could still absolutely kick my rear end from here to there by not even blinking.
Yeah, okay. He could probably do that to me too. But listen, say what you want about Jake. If anybody was taking it easy in that fight to not hurt the other person, Unfortunately, it was Jake Paul.
Yeah, 100%. Mike Tyson, I don't think he wouldn't have fought that.
Although I will say, in the first round, I was thinking in my head, man, if Tyson was even 5 years younger, he's probably winning that fight.
When the first round started, Tyson threw some good shots immediately.
Yeah.
But then that was it. But
yeah,
my point being is, Aaron Rodgers had a few plays here or there, but the work as a whole this year, I think he's nearing the end. That's what it's looking like to me. See.
Well, I personally don't know I personally don't know for sure. I have my theories about the Tyson Paul fight. Aaron Rodgers, I think he is washed up, and that's something that the Jets are going to have to deal with. But we want to go ahead and mention that, by the way, this show is brought to you by something that is very much not washed up. In fact, it is something that you absolutely should check out. That is called Underdog Fantasy.
Underdog is the place to play if you're a sports fan looking to win money while watching sports. With over 5 million happy players and $2 billion won, Underdog makes it fun and easy to cash in on all your favorite athletes' performances. Compete against other players by just selecting higher or lower on 2 or more player stats, and you could win up to 1,000 times your money, so turn every touchdown into a win with Underdog. They have 2 promotions going right now. Vulture Protection. If you select a designated running back to score a touchdown in your pick'em entry, and they get vultured, we will rescue your entry. Red Zone Rush. A game you won't find anywhere else. Just pick whether or not a player will score a TD by swiping right for yes or left for no. Simple as that. Plus, your entry will be automatically boosted, and you'll get a 51% profit boost when you play. Join over 5 million fans that are already playing on Underdog. With their Champs game, you can win money by making entries with your favorite players. Download the Underdog app today and use the promo code 3YARDS. That's the promo code 3YARDS to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Higher or lower, you make the call on Underdog. Must be 18 plus, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 19 plus in Alabama, New England, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, 1-800-639-8783, or text NEXT-STEP to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 HOPE line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY to 467-369.
All right, so I want to go ahead and I want to dive back into the offense for a little bit longer because it was actually one of the comments that was made during this show in the comments. In Dade talking about McD and Tua are learning the Brady Patriots option of the passing game. When the opportunity presents itself, then they can go back to the other options. So this is what I wanted to go ahead and bring up here. So I've just pulled up some stats from the past few games. I didn't get a chance to pull up this last one, but I will in a minute. But even in the losses, you can see where the adjustment is being made. So let's keep in mind, what did Tom Brady do to us for literally 2 decades? He was not an explosive quarterback. He was not the quarterback who would absolutely blow you up with his legs. He would just nick you with so many paper cuts that you would bleed out by the end of it. There was this guy over here and this guy over here, the short passing game. Why are we not stopping the short passing game? Oh my God, somebody stop this man. Never happened. 2 decades. He did that to us. We hated him. We despised him. Every time we went up against him, we wanted to see him get hurt, it felt like. So it's like, please stop him from killing us over and over and over again. And even then, mind you, he did it even worse to other teams. We were actually the team he lost the most against in his career. So that's the scary thing. So, and even then, it was like, oh my God, can we ever beat this guy? He was just so surgical in his movements and where he went with the ball. With the past 2 years in Miami's offense, it's been the Tyreek and Waddle show. Every pass seemed to be designated to either go to one of those 2 guys. And it was always like 10 or 15 yards down the field, minimum. And it was working for a while. And then somewhere down the line, probably around the time the 49ers, we had to go to San Francisco. And I remember I had to do that post-game show by myself, and I was miserable with 49ers fans in the chat just blowing me up about how we were losers and blah, blah. It was not a fun experience. But they figured out how to stop Tua from finding Tyreek and Waddle in the middle of the field. They went with the safeties. They pulled back the linebackers. They made it so that the passing game just wasn't going to be effective. That was not how this offense was designed to run. And they continued to do that up until finally this year. Now, some people have speculated that McDaniel had to learn how to play without Tua. He had to basically change the whole offense from start to finish because now that Tua's not here, well, now you have to deal with Skylar Thompson, and that didn't work because he got hurt. Now you have to deal with Tyler Huntley, and that didn't work. Now you have to deal with Tim Boyle for a little while. That didn't work. Now Tua finally comes back, and we think that it's going to go all the way back to what it was. But something happened. McDaniel realized, you know what? I can't throw this football to save my life. I'm going to have to figure out how to make this running game work. Lo and behold, here comes Alec Ingold as the lead blocker extraordinaire, and suddenly Miami's running the football like it's nobody's business. I want to go ahead and pull up these numbers here. Devon Achane against the Arizona Cardinals. And mind you, we lost that game because it was the game-winning field goal and whatever. Devon Achane, 10 carries for 97 yards. And that's pretty darn good. And as for the actual passing of the football, this was probably one of the most varied route trees that you can look at. Tyreek Hill, 6 catches, 72 yards. Devon Achane, 6 catches, 50 yards. Jalen Waddle, 4 catches, 45 yards. Jonnu Smith, 4 catches, 20 yards. Ingold, 3 catches for 19. Julian Hill, 3 for 11. Mostert got 1 for 11. And even D. Eskridge got in on it with 1 for 6. That's 12, 16, 20, 26, 27, 28 receptions overall, divided by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different receivers in that game. That's not a Tyreek and Waddle heavy kind of game. Tua's learning to throw the ball to other players. And here I'll use the Bills one as another example. There wasn't a single running back that ended up getting like a giant chunk of yards, but it was pretty evenly split. Devon Achane, 12 carries for 63 yards. Mostert, 10 for 56. As far as passing the ball, another game for Tyreek. Yeah, 4 catches for 80 yards. Okay, cool. That's fine. Devon Achane caught 8 passes for 58 yards. Jonnu Smith, 5 catches for 46 yards. 2 for Mostert, 2 for 32. Odell Beckham, 3 for 15. He's passing the ball around. This is exactly what Tom Brady did. Whoever happens to be open, that's the guy who's going to get it. With the Rams game, the running game didn't work at all. It was just not a pretty game altogether. But let's again look at how many players actually ended up catching passes that game. Waddle, 3 for 57. Jonnu Smith, 3 for 45. Mostert, 2 for 34. Beckham, 2 for 17. 1 for 17 for Malik Washington. 3 for 16 for Tyreek. Achane, 5 for 15. Smythe, 1 for 6. There's not impressive numbers by any stretch. We still scored 23 points and beat the Rams by 8. But the reality is that if you're looking at it from that perspective, it's not one guy anymore. This is exactly what we were hoping for at the beginning of the season when we initially signed Odell Beckham. We were hoping for somebody else to make some catches so that way the pressure would come off of Tyreek and Waddle and we'd be able to move the offense a little bit more. I don't think this is how we envisioned it happening. I don't think we were looking at this offense as basically giving up on the big play. We were supposed to have these other guys available for only in the rare occasion that the big play wasn't available and Tua had to dump it off. Dumping it off has become the mainstay of the offense all of a sudden because the defenses are taking away the big one. And it's to their detriment. It's really to their detriment because now that Tua has learned that there's more to football than always going for the highlight reels, all of a sudden this Dolphins offense, I would argue, and this is where I say this is talking about the next evolution. I feel like the Dolphins offense is now actually more dangerous than they used to be because they were forced to learn how to play a different style. Now they can do both. Now, if you take away the big play, that's fine. Tua will cut you up later on in the short game. If you finally give up on that and say, you know what, enough's enough, you just opened up the field for Tyreek. You can't do both things at once. It is impossible to do both things at once. You cannot plug up the short game and stop Tyreek from beating you one-on-one way downfield. You can't do both. It's not possible. So when I talk about the next evolution, and this is why I am so hell-bent on defending this regime, and if that means that Chris Grier sticks around too, look, I'm not going to lose sleep over Chris Grier. Do I think he deserves to keep his job? Not necessarily. I really don't. I mean, if he gets fired or whatever, if he doesn't get fired, truthfully, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. I'm really not, because for all the talk about he didn't get a good backup quarterback, he didn't fix the offensive line. I get all that. I agree with it. I think that he deserves to be held accountable for it, but he still put a lot of talent on this team. We got Devon Achane because Chris Grier decided that, you know what? I don't need to go for the superstar player in the second round. I'll wait for later on. And he got him. We have Devon Achane thanks to Chris Grier. There are a lot of things that we have thanks to Chris Grier. And again, I'm not absolving him of the mistakes he's made. He's obviously made mistakes. But this team, we've been saying it, or at least I've been saying it, is better than what their record says. And now the Dolphins are fighting to prove it, that they're better than what their record says. Tua being gone is probably the reason why this season is hanging by a thread. It's not because the talent is bad. It's because this offense is so catered to Tua, and McDaniel was so unwilling to adapt that they couldn't function without him. And no matter what they did, it really wouldn't have mattered. I'm thinking about it now as we speak. Would it have mattered if we went and got Joe Flacco that much? It would have been, I guess, looked marginally better, but the offense was not going to function the way that Tua had it running by any stretch. There's no one who would have been. You couldn't pull out anybody, Eric or Chad. You couldn't name me one person who would have been able to do the job to the point where this offense would function the way it needed to. It's so desperate on timing and rhythm. Nobody else can do it. They tried.
I agree with you in the larger sense. Where I will vehemently disagree is you could have gotten somebody that did just enough to beat the Colts and to beat the Titans, and you'd be sitting at 6-4 right now. It's not about can they beat Tua. We understand they're not going to beat Tua, but it's just could you bridge that gap to beat those two teams and be in a much better position for the postseason with a better quarterback? You absolutely could have. That's right. That's where I think the frustration comes in. It's not, oh boy, Joe Flacco would have had the offense humming. I don't think anybody really believes that.
Well,
I'll give you the name was saying in April. That's Justin Fields. I don't know if you saw how the Steelers just beat the Ravens. They took Russell Wilson off the field, and Justin Fields came in and ran for a first down
and started being a running back. Yeah,
he doesn't have to be that. Like Eric said, he doesn't have to be Tua. Can he beat those two teams? Gardner Minshew, he was up and out. He played pretty well, I thought, considering the circumstances.
He just threw it to Brock Bowers over and over again, Chad. I'm not giving him credit for that. Nope. Sorry.
Yeah, but what he had,
they literally let him have Brock Bowers.
His number one receiver is Jacoby Myers. I mean, like. I'm not saying he's great. I'm saying he's significantly better than Skylar
Eric,
Thompson.
Eric's going to be funny.
Would Skylar Thompson have found Brock Bowers over and over again?
If he let them watch all the time, yeah.
No, he would have stood in the pocket and watched Brock Bowers run wide open before he gets absolutely smashed into the grass.
But I mean, that's beating the dead horse. But I think the majority of the fans agree. Chris Grier and McDaniel, they're both to blame. They had no plan realistically. They were going with Mike White, and he was terrible in the preseason. That's where they were at, and they didn't want to pay. I don't know what Gardner Minshew cost, probably $10 million. I don't know what his salary is, but they didn't want to pay a high end number two. But they didn't want to invest draft wise either. They have to draft a quarterback this year high. I hope they do. But anyway, that's a different topic for a different time.
Gardner Minshew signed, just for the sake of argument, he signed a 2-year, $25 million contract with the Raiders.
Yeah, no.
Well,
you're pretty beefy.
Gardner Minshew's probably around between the 35th and 40th best quarterback in this league for sure, and so that's what you're paying for. Like, you can't name me 5 backups probably in this league that are better than Gardner Minshew.
Listen, you want to talk about backups? Yeah. I already said it in a previous show. If you really want a veteran backup who you have a shot at winning, if you desperately need somebody to do it, next year you find a way, and I'm sure he's not going to be nearly as expensive as he once would have been. Go find Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm dead serious.
That wouldn't shock me. That's what they do, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I
I
wouldn't
mean,
be shocked.
he'd be better than what we had, but I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully they learn their lesson to at least have a, because you can't rely on Tua. There's no doubt Tua. If you don't understand Tua is a good quarterback, I don't know what to tell you. But you also can't deny he's only played one healthy season since his junior in college.
Can I interject on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you were the one who've actually pointed this out in the past. All of Tua's injuries have not been because Tua gets hit too hard. All of Tua's injuries in the NFL have been him doing something stupid. So he just needs to stop doing that.
Based on him going low to try to make a tackle, Tua's not changing.
Yeah, I mean, he still had instances in the last couple of weeks where he's held on to the ball maybe a little more than you'd like.
Okay, but him getting hit is not the problem. Him knocking his head into people on purpose has been the problem.
No, because he's been swung down and had his head bounce off the turf a few times.
Yeah, he fixed that problem.
He's still doing. That's the way to fix it, not to get hit.
Yeah, exactly. That's
he didn't take the martial arts for nothing.
Well, sometimes you can't help it. And he's a smallish guy.
You absolutely can. If you can still brace yourself properly. That's the whole point of his training. Instead of letting your head go boing, you don't have to do that.
Actually, I looked back at the play against Buffalo, and I think that's what happened to him there. I promise you, it was not that he went into Damar Hamlin. If you look on his way down, he snaps back and hits his head on the turf again.
Probably, yeah.
What?
Either way,
I promise you, if you go back and you watch that play, you'll see it. I promise you. But regardless, getting back to the offense, I see your Tom Brady comparison, and I'll just go.
I'm not saying he's Tom Brady, just for the record. I'm not saying.
No. I know.
I've been consistent. He's Drew Brees.
Exactly. That was actually going to be my point. Because do you remember those Saints offenses from like 2008 to 2012? There would be a graphic up every single Saints game you would watch, and it would be like Drew Brees has 20 completions to 9 different receivers. And that's kind of, I think, where the Dolphins are headed at this moment. You've got Achane who's involved. You've got Jonnu who's involved. You've got Tyreek who's involved. You've got Jalen Waddle who, believe it or not, is involved. You're folding in a little bit of Odell Beckham. You're folding in a little bit of Malik Washington. So I think that they're just becoming a little bit more layered in that way. And I can't see how that's a bad thing for the offense moving forward. I'm really hopeful that they get Alec Ingold back. I'd like to see him get back against New England so that there's no rust versus Green Bay. But knowing Mike McDaniel and the way that this coaching staff treats injuries, it wouldn't shock me if he's held out another week in anticipation of the Green Bay matchup. But I think that that's going to be the next big piece in the offense is getting Ingold, getting Wynn, incorporating those guys, and hopefully that brings you can kind of get that interior run game going again because they've missed that in the last few weeks.
We're gonna
Wynn's got to be close.
Wynn, I think, will be back by Green Bay.
I think he's back this week. He practiced all week last week. I think last week was kind of we're going to get you a full week of practice, and then I think he comes back this week.
Well, and he does have to beat out Robert Jones. I mean,
no, he doesn't. Yeah. No, he doesn't.
Robert Jones is not 100%.
Yeah, but I don't know what kind of shape Wynn's in or where he's at physically. But
I don't care. He's better. Talent matters, Chad.
What does get interesting though is, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Robert Jones looked a lot better last year when he was on the right side. I think the interesting question is him or Liam at right guard. in a
I
world
think
where
it's Liam, not just simply because he's been playing it all season.
They're not going to boot Eichenberg out because Robert Jones is available on the right side. I don't like that. I'm sure that Coach Eric was somewhere. He has this as a disturbance in the force, and he's going to pop in here and be like, "Here's why you're wrong." I don't care. I don't.
He's
like
played
Eichenberg.
better this year. You got to give him credit.
No, he certainly is. He certainly is.
Great. So he's not as bad as Dallas Thomas. Woo!
Well, we don't have any of those on the team now. What I'm saying is I don't know for sure if Isaiah Wynn's ready or not. I think he's physically getting close. Will he change the team from where Jones is at?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Chad, Isaiah Wynn looked really good at left guard while he was there last year.
Yeah, I would agree. So
that's why they didn't bring him back for the lulls. Like he's there because he's here because he's good.
Well, if he's back to where he was at the beginning of last year, yeah, by all means, I would say get him in there. So we'll see.
I mean, I would think because I don't know. It's got to speak at least a little bit to the kind of shape that he's in. That the second that they opened up his window, he was practicing. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I would imagine it'd be a much slower play if there was a concern about that. At least me being
at the very least, he's good. He should be better than Lester Cotton, I would think.
Oh my God,
everybody's better than Lester. Tua's best friend, Lester Cotton. That's again, I'm gonna say this until I'm blue in the face. That's the only reason he's still here is because he's friends with Tua from Bama.
Arguably, that's the most important. I would argue that's probably the most important development of Isaiah Wynn going back to the line is all of a sudden your number one backup along the interior is likely Robert Jones. It's no longer Lester Cotton. And that is a much better position to be in depth-wise.
Yep. There was one guy, is it Pena? Lenny Pena? Am I saying that right? Louis?
Lenny Pena, yes. And I was actually wanted to end up. I was going to actually wanted to end the show with this comment. If we make the playoffs, do you think the Dolphins' current style of play will travel to a cold city? And that's where my answer, I feel like, is yes. Because if Alec Ingold is healthy, they can run the football. They can run it all they want. If they continue to do the short passing game, again, defenses have to pick and choose what they want to defend. If you're going to stop Tyreek and Waddle from running wild, that means that Jonnu's open, OBJ is open, Achane is open, and Tua's getting it to them. So if you want to take away the big play, you're going to get paper cut. So it's going to be one or the other.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, Liz. I think right now, coming into this New England game, this might be the best personnel we've had even over last year. Because this year we hadn't had Odell Beckham. We didn't have River Craycraft. And those aren't big stat guys, but they contribute on a handful of plays every game that are significant. And the other big thing right now is can our line hold together? We've had so many problems. Like personally, this is something I was wondering about. I didn't think there was a chance Teron Armstead would play more than 5 games.
I was literally about to say that. It's like, are you impressed that Teron Armstead is lasted
I'm very,
this long?
And he's. I think I read that he's the number 1 ranked tackle in the league. So if he holds together, if we can keep him bubblegum together and playing, and we don't lose like a much more because we've lost Jackson now, Austin Jackson, which. Not that Lamb's not a capable backup, but he's a drop off from Austin Jackson. So we can't keep losing offense. If
Certainly
our line
blocker.
Yeah. And I know we have Patrick Paul around if we get there, but if we can hold together on our offensive line, this is a better team than the playoff teams last year. And we have added Jalen Wright, which is significant because if we get a nicked up running back or we can use him. And so, I'm
having a theory. I have a theory about Jalen Wright. And I think this is probably why he hasn't been incorporated as much as we thought he would be by now. I've noticed something about Jalen Wright. He is a one-cut guy. He takes the ball and just charges. That's what he does. And a lot of times I've noticed he charges right into some bodies. Like Mostert is more patient with his running and he finds a hole. Wright just grabs the ball and takes off. And I think that's probably why he's not getting as many carries as we think he should.
On the surface, we have 3 good backs, but I can tell you Devon Achane's made a big jump this year, and he's significantly better than the other 2, which some people aren't aware of. Now, not just as a runner, but Devon Achane's become a very capable wide receiver. And I don't know if you guys remember back in the day. Now, he's not the back that this guy was at Marshall Faulk on the Rams. One of the things that made him so good is he was such a good receiver. And Devon Achane has done a lot of work this offseason. And in that McDaniel.
Would you argue that he could be compared to Alvin Kamara?
Yeah, I mean, I think Kamara might be a better runner overall than Achane, but Achane runs pretty effectively inside, which is hard to do as a guy inside. He has no problem cutting back into the middle of the field at his size. But again, it's the receiving. So when McDaniel comes out there, because he's a big motion shift guy, right? And you can shift in what the defense. So if you have a defense that comes out and they say, we're going to bring in our thumpers, and we're going to have our 2 down linebackers in. You suddenly got a real problem when Mike McDaniel has Achane leave the backfield and go into the slot, because who's picking him up? Because a linebacker cannot cover him. And so he gives you a dynamic on what you can shift in and out of that the other 2 backs can't. Right. I don't know if he'll get over this. I don't know if you guys remember when we drafted him and what been so long. He is an upright runner. And I don't have an issue with performance on a run, but you don't last very long because you take such shots to the midsection if you don't lower.
I'm not really worried about Wright's durability. Like, he's taking hits and he's getting back up. But again, my issue with him is that he's not patient. He's just grabbing the ball and it's like, let's see where I can do.
I mean, he's got some. He's a rookie. He looks like a rookie to me. He does rookie stuff, but there's no doubt he runs really hard. And so I would not start a game with Wright, but he's a great guy to put in like the third quarter when the defense is a little worn down and bringing him in fresh. And you're right. He just comes in there like a rocket, and he's either going to slam into somebody or he's going to break through. But yeah, I mean, he's going to be the number 2 back next year. I still think, even though the fumble issues, as we get into these bigger games, you're going to see a bigger role for Mostert than you have in the last few games, because he's just a veteran. He knows the offense and he'll make some plays for us. So I think Wright's time is going to be next year. He'll just get a handful of carries here or there. But I think Achane, I would expect him to get 75% of the carries going forward.
Yeah, he's obviously the number 1.
I mean, I think Alvin Kamara is a little ambitious.
I mean,
I would say
Kamara
no, it is. Kamara is a Hall of Famer.
He's established. Okay, yeah, he's established. But if you know what, Drew Brees is also a Hall of Famer, and I'm comparing Tua to him, and nobody's complaining right now. But
Tua's not in year 2 anymore.
Yeah.
I would give you supercharged Darren Sproles. That's what I'll give you.
You know what? I thought about Darren Sproles, and the reason
better.
The reason I didn't say Darren Sproles was because I used to say Darren Sproles with other running backs that we had who were just like, oh, you're the gadget guy, you're the receiver guy who can sometimes run the football. Achane runs.
No, that's
much
what
more.
Exactly.
But that's why I picked Kamara.
That's why I said supercharged. Because he's better.
Supercharged. I would say he's definitely a better runner than Darren Sproles, but yeah. I'm with you on Eric. I can't say he's a better player than Alvin Kamara right now. But
I didn't say he was better. I just compared him.
Comparable. I'm comparing him to Marshall Faulk, so that's even more ridiculous.
The whole issue with Kamara and even a Faulk thing really is I just don't think Achane's body can sustain a workload like those 2 guys can.
I'll tell you what, Eric, I just saw a picture of him the other day from at the game, and I think Achane's weight's not being that guy. I think he's 200 pounds. Looking at him, I'd like to see him on a real scale, because I think I know he added some weight in the offseason, but I think when he came to this team, he was like $180, and I think he's pushing 200, maybe even a touch more. But if you get a chance, look at a picture of the 3 of them standing next to each other, and he's by far looks to be the thickest of the backs now. Mostert's a pretty tall back, and Wright's a pretty tall back. They're both taller than Achane, but Wright definitely needs to add 10 pounds on, looking at his frame, but we'll see.
Well, if we ever needed a guy who's built like a brick house, I've heard that Jakeem Grant's looking for a team again.
Built like a brick house? That guy's like $170.
He's a square. That was always my point. He's a square.
I want a 235-pound back. That's what I want to add to this group. I want
That's called Chris Brooks. The Packers took him.
He's gone, I guess. Yeah.
Didn't they try to make him a fullback? I thought I heard a report about that.
I think he just was backing up a little bit for some formations, but I wish we would have kept him. I don't know how big Jeff Wilson is, but that's who we kept instead.
They'll find some undrafted free agent somewhere next year that'll probably end up being fine there.
Yeah, I agree.
We can always go back and get Myles Gaskin. I'm sure he's hanging around somewhere.
No.
Is he free agent now? We don't want. He's smaller than those guys.
I mean, listen, if we're playing, fantasy
with the Vikings, by the way, Chad.
Did he get cut? Is he on the Vikings still?
Still with the Vikings.
Okay.
But if we're playing like dream scenario stuff, and I don't care about other positions other than running back, I'm drafting Kalen Johnson out of Iowa.
Yeah, trust me on that one. I watched him a lot.
Chad knows better than anyone.
I also know there's no chance in hell we're getting him. But
I know.
I mean, he's my number 2. Like, if I was asking Santa for Christmas gifts, he's my number 2 request. But
he's your number 2. Yeah. Okay, but Chad, you're from Iowa. Is there a little bit?
I mean, if you paired that guy with Devon Achane, oh my God, he's big and fast. But my number 1 present, if you guys are wondering, is Cam Ward, which we're obviously not getting him either. But I would love to have him with
night. Okay.
Hear me out. Jackson Dart round 3.
I'm okay with that. Like, give me somebody that can legitimately have a potential prospect to be a franchise quarterback, not to replace Tua, but just to be the plan B and get him in here. I would take any of them. I'd take Evers. Who's the Alabama guy? Milroe? Is that his name? I'd take him. I'd take Sanders. I'd take Ward. Any of them.
Shadur Sanders is going. I don't even know if I said his name right. He's going in the first round.
Well, they're probably all those guys are more than likely, but who knows? But yeah, Ward I think is projecting 2 overall right now. I'm sure the Jets and Raiders are both eyeing him big time right now, but
I don't think GM Aaron Rodgers would approve, sir. He's already been replaced. How many times has he been replaced?
Listen, Jets fans, if you liked GM Aaron Rodgers, I hope you love GM Dion. Because it's coming.
Oh my God! Could you imagine? Picture Dion and Aaron Rodgers on the same team. Like who?
Aaron Rodgers is done in the Jets this year. He's not coming back. I kind of wonder with the GM getting fired today. Now that I'm thinking about that, is this the move? Who was the Florida State guy last year? He had an injury, but was really good at Florida State.
Jordan
Travis. The Jets. Jordan Travis. He's on the Jets. I'm pretty sure.
GM Aaron Rodgers would not approve.
What are the Jets 3-8? What is their record right now? Like
irrelevant, Chad. Aaron Rodgers is in charge.
Right. Well, maybe you're firing the GM because you're going to start playing that guy. Like what good does Aaron Rodgers help your team right now at 3-8? I mean, Jordan Travis could be a franchise quarterback, right?
Chad, I get the logic. I'm telling you, it's not happening.
They fired Joe Douglas because of Aaron Rodgers. They literally firing the GM is the whole.
Aaron Rodgers got Solly fired. He just got Joe Douglas fired. He got all his buddies back.
No.
He got Mike Williams fired.
Joe Douglas brought him in. Joe Douglas brought him in. Them firing Joe Doug. He brought in Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I know. He dug his own grave.
Exactly. So Dion is going to come in there with his son. It's going to be the head coach quarterback combo in New York because that's what Woody Johnson wants.
I'm here for it. I'm here for it if they do that.
The thing is that actually work because that Shadur Sanders is very talented. I don't want that, but it's like the nepotism drives me nuts, man.
So do you guys think though that the Jets are going to keep Aaron Rodgers in there and try to like squeak out 3 more wins or something to ruin their shot at the top 5?
Aaron Rodgers is in charge. He's not going to bench himself.
But is he still in charge now at this point?
Yes.
Man,
there might be a mutiny in the locker room at some point, but
but mutiny happens, and they're going to have to literally kick Aaron Rodgers out of the locker room.
They might. They won't.
Touch Aaron Rodgers.
I mean, you're not going to see it. Where you're going to see is Aaron Rodgers is going to have some soft tissue injury that keeps him out. That's the way it's going to happen.
No, because Chad, listen, everybody can see it. If we want to talk about conspiracy theories, Aaron Rodgers loves conspiracies. You don't think that he thinks in terms of, oh man, if I end up getting injured right now, everybody's going to know that I'm faking it. Like, he's not going to do that to himself.
Yeah, but what does he have to gain anymore by playing this year? Like,
Nothing.
He's thinking, who's my next team?
In the short term, I think he lacks enough self-awareness to think that he can turn it around. If they lose their next game, I think that probably ends for good.
So you think they're still living the "we'll make it at 9-8" dream?
I think so.
I mean, we are
I
still
think
making.
Aaron
We're still living
Rodgers
that dream.
is just
but we only
replaying
have
the
6
whole-
losses.
He thinks he's still the relaxed guy. He's not that guy anymore.
I hope he's the throw 3 picks to Jalen Ramsey guy when we play him. That's what I. Anyway, thank you guys.
Give Cam Smith something to do. All right, we're going to go ahead and call it here. Everybody, thank you all so much for listening. We really appreciate you. Once again, check out Underdog Fantasy. Check out thompsonscigar.com. So once again, we always appreciate when you guys come in and listen to us. We always appreciate the comments that you leave us. And hopefully next week we'll be coming back and we'll be celebrating another win against the New England Patriots, which even if Drake May is good, I don't think the rest of the team very much is. So that's it. We'll see you all next week.